Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We extend a warm welcome to you this evening. It is a momentous occasion. It is the 97th birth anniversary of Mr. Nani Palkhivala, and also we have great pleasure in launching the book Nani Palkhivala, God's Gift to India. We have on the dais some dignitaries who words will fail to introduce. I mean, their reputation precedes them. We have Justice RM Lodha, the ex-Chief Justice of India. We have Mr. SD Malegam, who is the chairman of the Nani Palkhivala Foundation. And we have Mr. Jehangir Palkhivala, who is the nephew of Mr. Nani Palkhivala. Mr. Palkhivala was a genius, and this book is a tribute to his contributions to his profession, the country, and I would say to mankind. He was a master of the spoken word and the written word, and this is a rare combination. And what Dr. Dharmendra Bhandari has done in this book is tried to bring out facets of this character, of this genius, who has inspired so many people in this country. This young country was struggling to find its feet in a complex world post-independence, and I think Mr. Nani Palkhivala was one of the doyens, one of the torchbearers who showed us the way in his own way. With these few words, I would request Justice RM Lodha, Mr. SD Malegam, Jehangir Palkhivala to officially launch the book which is written in his tribute. I happen to be a colleague, a friend, and an admirer of Dr. Dharmendra Bhandari, who has written this book. And I would request him to say a few words about this genius, about the book, and what inspired him to pen his thoughts about this giant of our country. Dharmendra.
Elder in the family, respected Rajendra Malsa Lodha, my friends SD Malegam, Jangir, members of the Palkhivala family, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Very good evening to you all, and here's wishing Nani a very happy birthday in heaven. At the outset, my sincere thanks to all of you for gracing my book launch, Nani Palkhivala, God's Gift to India, biography by a friend. And to Justice Lodha and Mrs. Lodha, who are here all the way from Delhi. It seems quite appropriate that the book is launched in Mumbai, Nani's Janmbhumi and Karma Bhumi. But more uncanny is the fact that it is being launched at the Cricket Club of India, Nani's go-to venue for the budget speeches. And I think so many of you would have been attending his budget speeches. Hailed by C. Rajagopalachari, former Governor General of India, he gave Nani the phrase, God's gift to India. Nani was not just an eminent constitutional expert and a legal savant, but he was also a corporate czar, eminent diplomat, a great orator, prolific writer, political philosopher and a spiritual visionary. He was, in a sense, the conscious keeper of the nation, and his story, I'm sure, is an inspiration to all of us. To borrow the words of late R.K. Lakshman, it is a story written by a common man for an uncommon man. Born on this day in 1920, Nani Palkhivala came from a middle-class family. As a child, he was a voracious reader, and he used to sit and study in a neighborhood bookshop till the shutters were down. But what is important is he not just grasped what he read, but he could recall the lines much later. Determination came early to Nani. When confronted with the writer's cram, he took the help of writers to complete his university exams. One of these writers was Nargesh Madbar, who later on became his better half. Nani went on to become a prolific writer, and his magnum opus, The Law and Practice of Income Tax, was published when he was just 30 years and still remains a Bible for the tax professionals. However, no autobiography flowed from Nani's magic pen, something his ardent fans would miss out. Apparently, he chose not to write a biography because he thought he would have to be truthful, and perhaps that truthfulness could hurt a few. There was also a matter of career for young Nani to consider. After doing his MA, he was declined a university job because that was given to some other colleague of his, and his father persuaded him to do LLB. In 1944, Nani completed his LLB and joined the chambers of Sir Jamshedji Kanga. Evidently, the loss to literature was the gain to the Indian jurisprudence. In court, Nani would hold his audience, both admirers and adversaries, in thrall. Courtrooms would be jam-packed on the days of his argument, citing the relevant section, subsection, case laws, both Indian and foreign. He would present his case with unfailing courtesy, irrefutable logic, and incomparable lucidity. In fact, such was his magnanimity that if opposing advocate was struggling for some citation, Nani would help them from his memory. And judges who would inevitably fall under his spell would take time off before pronouncing their verdict. Am I right, sir? What made Nani flawless performances even more remarkable was the fact that as a child, he had a stutter. However, he overcame his speech impediment and went on to dazzle the world with his eloquence, just like Aristotle and Winston Churchill. Over the years, Nani grew in strength and stature as an orator. What's more, he spoke with fearlessness, irrespective of the party in power, with the ability to reel out facts, figures, and comparative statistics without any written notes, unlike what I'm doing now. Over the years, he was best known for his legendary budget speeches delivered in houseful stadiums, which often forced the government of the day to alter its policies. For nearly 4 decades, from 1958 to 1994, while the finance ministers came and went, the nation's date with Nani remained unchanged. His budget analysis was a calendar event not to be missed. Dr. Manmohan Singh, who served as finance minister from 1991 to 96, incorporated several of Nani's suggestions made over the decades. In fact, he once said that the credit of economic reforms should go to Nani. Perhaps if Nani would have been the finance minister, he would have presented the budget without a written text. Nani's silent contribution to the corporate sector is as significant as his much lauded contribution to civil liberties. Business doyen J.R.D. Tata initiated Nani into the corporate world. Nani reciprocated the trust reposed in him by establishing Tata Consultancy Services. However, he joined them on the condition that he would have complete independence. He did not draw any salary and charged a nominal fee for the legal services rendered to Tatas. Interestingly, in less than 50 years, the market capitalization of his brainchild, TCS, is twice that of all the Tata Group companies put together. It's truly fascinating that the mind of Nani was nothing less than a supercomputer itself, with the ability to store and sort data and the gift of eidetic recall. The value of Nani's mind did not go unnoticed, even among the politicians he censured. All the prime ministers from Jawaharlal Nehru to Atal Bihari Vajpayee sought Nani's services. In 1955, when Nani was just 35 years of age, he was appointed as a member of the First Law Commission, and later, in 1958, he was appointed as a member of the Second Law Commission. In 1963, he was invited to be a judge of the Supreme Court, which he declined. And after the war with Pakistan in 1965, when he was barely 45 years, the Shastri government appointed Nani as legal counsel for India in the Indo-Pakistan Western Boundary Tribunal case, popularly known as the Ran of Kutch dispute. When Shastri passed away, Indira Gandhi ratified Nani's appointment. Over the next 2 years, Nani spared no effort in fighting the case tooth and nail on the basis of historical and geographical evidence, unlike the case laws and other things, camping out in Geneva. The verdict saw India being awarded 90% of the disputed 3,500 square miles. Nani won the war for India by words, and we have peace there. Wish he could have done the same for Kashmir too. During the Ran of Kutch case, Nani often briefed Indira Gandhi and their relationship strengthened. She offered him the post of law minister, which he politely declined. Again, in 1968, he was offered the post of Attorney General for India, which he accepted but declined the next day morning. Over the years, the relationship between Indira Gandhi and Nani oscillated between mutual admiration and mutual mistrust. He admired her desire to touch the lives of the poor, her strategic moves that helped India win the Bangladesh war, and her courage to make an international statement through nuclear detonation. However, he was not enamored of her handling the economy and her onslaught on the fundamental rights. Gandhi was an advocate of socialistic pattern, which was anathema to Nani, a champion of free enterprise. Interestingly, Nani fought several cases against the Indira Gandhi government in India, such as bank nationalization, privy force, fundamental right, but he fought all the cases for the Indira Gandhi government in the international arena, may it be Geneva, Montreal, or the World Court in Hague. Indeed, Nani was guided by his moral compass. Consider the fact that he took up the Indira Gandhi election case in the Supreme Court and won a conditional stay in her favor. However, when she imposed emergency, he returned her brief, insisting, I quote, "This is not something that can be discussed or negotiated," unquote. Nani's decision to brave Gandhi's wrath by refusing to plead her case took immense courage, and instantly turned him into a people's hero. He went on to oppose her tooth and nail during the emergency. But Indira Gandhi did not have Nani arrested because of her genuine respect for Nani. When Morarji Desai became the Prime Minister, he wanted Nani to accept the ambassadorship to US. When Nani respectfully declined, he directed his External Affairs Minister Vajpayee to secure his consent. Mr. Vajpayee flew into Bombay for dinner diplomacy, and at first, when Nani remained unmoved, Vajpayee, in his inimitable style, threatened that he will sit on dharna at Nani's house till he consented. The rest is history. In 1998, the I.K. Gujral government awarded Nani the Padma Vibhushan, second highest civilian award in the country. And, sir, it is my desire that in his centenary year 2019, the government of India will find it worthy to award him Bharat Ratna. While releasing a postage stamp in his honor, Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee said, I quote, "It used to be said that he was the best law minister that India never had. But it also used to be remarked that he was the best finance minister India never had." Unquote. In fact, Justice Lodha's message to the book also states that Nani Palkhivala was one of the best judges the Supreme Court never had. On a personal note, in 1995, when Manmohan Singh contested the Lok Sabha elections from New Delhi, Nani gave me a letter of support in his favor. At that time, I remember Mr. Vajpayee, who was often dubbed as the right man in the wrong party, told Nani that by supporting Singh for the elections, he had gone for the right man in the wrong party. This incident is also mentioned in the book. Interestingly, when Mrs. Manmohan Singh ji read the book, on this observation, she remarked how nice it would have been if the right man was in the right party. When I first presented the copy of my book to President Pranab Mukherjee last year, he said, I quote, "I still remember how after I delivered my first budget in 1982, he remarked that it fell below his expectations. I wrote him a long letter explaining the constraints. You don't see men like that anymore. He was a giant." Unquote. These are some of the accolades showered on this great son of India. Why? Then my humble effort to honor him, you may wonder, why this book? Because I felt I owed it to him and what he brought to my life to tell his story, even though it has been told before. Support from Behram Palkhivala, Homi Ranina, Nani Palkhivala Memorial Trust, Forum of Free Enterprises, Harmony for Silver's Foundation, and Tata's helped me immensely in knitting together this account. The intangibles, however, came from my memories with him. Ours was a relationship akin to the eternal bonds between Krishna and Sudama. Though there was a generation gap, wealth gap, wisdom gap, yet he gave me the world of affection. I first met Nani as a 19-year-old student when I was doing my chartered accountancy, and I nudged my way through the teeming crowds at the Cricket Club of India in March 1976 to hear Nani deliver his budget address. To say I was mesmerized would be an understatement. To say I was enchanted would be underplaying it. After the speech, I jostled through the crowds to reach the podium where Nani was being mobbed like a rock star, and we had a brief chat. And when I sought a personal audience with him, he was generous enough to grant it. It was the beginning of our association. In those days, I was totally immersed in the spirit of the times and harbored a socialist bent of mind, though it went against the grain of Nani's philosophy of free enterprise. Yet, Nani would lend his stamp of approval to all my books by penning forewords to them. He appreciated my efforts to write, publish, and sell my books and make a neat profit, which I am doing even now. Inevitably, our relationship progressed beyond professional association. When I requested Nani to come to Jaipur to name my daughter, he made it. It was a very special moment when he took the child in his arms and whispered Savitri. Indeed, Nani was a truly inspiring man, and to really know him was to admire and cherish him. A man of principle and deep humility, he embodied plain living and high thinking. Living a fruitful yet frugal life. Self-disciplined, self-restrained, and self-actualized. He was against the single-minded pursuit of material wealth. Life for him was a spiritual quest. In fact, since the time he began his practice, Nani would donate generously to individuals and institutions. He donated 10% of his net income every year to Bharati Vidya Bhavan. And in his final years, Nani bequeathed his worldly wealth of shares worth 51 lakh rupees and fixed deposits worth 2 crore rupees to Chennai's Shankar Netralaya. On 11 December 2002, Nani breathed his last. That day, a banner flew high on the Marine Drive with the caption, "We the nation, we the people have lost a legend." That day, I lost my mentor and friend. But the memories and motivation, the inspiration and ideas, the wealth of knowledge and kinship, they all remain. This book is an attempt to preserve and protect them for posterity. Thank you all for patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bhandari. Dr. Bhandari is a doctor of finance, and I see his knowledge, his attention to detail, meticulousness on a daily basis, because he happens to be with us in the hospital where I work. And sometimes I wonder, after his speech, I see all the qualities which you would look for a doctor: empathy, sympathy, attention to detail. And taking a cue from what he said, I think he is a doctor of medicine, which our hospital never had. Because I see every single quality in him which you would wish for in a doctor. I've seen him laboring over this book and many other books, and it is a pleasure and honor to be associated with him. Thank you, Dr. Bhandari. May I now request Mr. Nani Palkhivala, the legendary Nani Palkhiwala's nephew, to say a few words on this occasion. Thank you.
Justice Lodha, Mr. Maligam, Dharmendra Bhandari, family and friends. I was given a rather brief today. Dharmendra Bhai asked me to speak for 5 minutes, and at the uttermost 6. So I'll try to be brief. But I thought I would speak about Nani Kaka and the things that perhaps many of us don't know about his life. One thing which I found rather remarkable told to be by my father, who just turned 90 in August. He's 7 years younger to Nani Kaka. Was to do with the enthusiasm that Nani Kaka had. Most of us know his enthusiasm all through his life, but most of us probably don't know that when he went to school, his enthusiasm was unique. Many of us here probably disliked school, many of us liked it very much. But Nani Kaka took it to an entirely different level. So my father tells this story of how in the middle of the night, Nani Kaka would get up in his sleep. Unbelievable as this is going to sound, he would put on his school clothes, go to his dad, I'll call him Papa because that's what they called him. So he would go to Papa, wake him up in the middle of the night and say, Papa, mane school javanu hai, which means, Papa, I have to go to school. So my grandfather had a rather unusual wit. He got up and realizing what was happening, he turned to Nani Kaka and said, Ha dikra panjara, mummy ne kahi ne ja. Go to school, but after telling your mother that. So still in his sleep, Nani Kaka would go around the bed, wake up his mother and say, Mamma mane school javanu hai. Mum, I have to go to school. My grandmother was different from my grandfather. She got up with a jolt and said, Are Gunegar, hey Sukaraj, what are you doing? So she would take off his clothes, put on his night clothes again, and put him to sleep. Now this is supposed to have happened more than once. So his enthusiasm for study, for learning, from the time he was rather young, was so extreme that he actually would not allow himself to sleep in peace. The other thing that we know about is his generosity. And in later life we have these amazing amounts that he gave, untold and unknown, to many charities, and the thumping one to Shankar Nitralaya. But the less known things are again little stories that I heard from my dad. For example, when Nani Kaka was a fledgling lawyer, just a few years at the bar, and he asked my dad, 7 years his junior, what my father wanted to do. So my father said, well, frankly, Nani, I really would like to pursue the spiritual life. I don't really enjoy the law, I don't enjoy business, I don't want to be a salaried employee, and I want to follow a spiritual life. So any well-meaning elder brother would probably say, that's all very well, but you have to earn, you have to support a family. How do you expect to do that? By following a spiritual life. But again, Nani Kaka's generosity was of a different order. So according to my dad, he looked my father straight in the eye and he said, Beram, if you want to follow the spiritual life, go ahead, I will support you. And by that he meant that he would support my father and his family for as long as he lived, if my father really wanted to pursue a spiritual life. That was how it was with anybody who worked for him also. So Mr. Palkhivala, who was his typist, told us when we visited his house, many years after Mr. Palkhivala had retired from service to my uncle, we went to meet him and he said, I still draw a check for my full salary every month. So we said, that's a little unusual. We thought you had retired more than 10 years ago. And he said, yes, but when you work for Nani Seth, you never truly retire. I get my check every month for the full amount, and he continued to get it as long as he lived. But perhaps the best compliment was given by Miss Dolly Palkhivala, who is in the audience just now. She borrowed the book from my mother, intending to just go through it maybe in half an hour or so and then return it the next day. But she picked it up at 10 o'clock at night before she went to bed. And the next day she told us that she couldn't stop reading it till 4 in the morning when she finally fell asleep. So thank you very much, Dharmendra Bhai, for a wonderful effort. Thank you.
Thank you so much again. May I request Mr. Y.H. Malegam, who is the chairman of the Nani Palkhivala Trust, to say a few words on this momentous occasion.
Justice Lodha, Jangir, Dharmendra, ladies and gentlemen. It's not easy to write a book on Nani Palkhivala. I think every author must be facing two problems. The first, of course, is not that there is not enough material to write about. The problem is there is too much. Nani was such a versatile personality that every author must have found it little difficult to determine not what he should include, but what he should exclude. And then the second problem was that there are already so many books about Nani, and therefore the salient features of his life are already known. But then, of course, Nani was both a public figure and also a very private person. And therefore, if there was an author who knew Nani personally, it would give him the opportunity to bring out aspects of his character which maybe was not available to other authors. And I think this is the strength of Bhandari's book, because he knew Nani so personally. And he had, thanks to the generosity of Mr. Bayram Palkhivala, he had access to a lot of his private papers, his private correspondence. And this is what makes this book a little different from all the other biographies which we have seen. Nani's life was a life which is worthy of emulation. And there are several aspects of his life which should be a matter of inspiration for all of us. I think, left to myself, I can think of at least 4 such qualities which greatly inspired me. First, Nani walked with kings but retained the common touch. He carried his many achievements with a great degree of humility and modesty. The very first time I met Nani was when, as a very young professional, I accompanied my senior partner for a conference with Nani. So he heard us, read the brief, and dictated his opinion. And then he saw some look on my face, and he turned to me and he said, "You seem to have some reservation." So very reluctantly I had to admit that yes, I did have some reservation. He asked me to explain my point of view, and he listened, and then he said, "Yes, I think you are right." He called that steno again and redictated the opinion. And what impressed me was that here was this counsel who was the leader of his profession. He was sitting in a chamber which was crowded with his clients, with his juniors, and he was willing to publicly acknowledge that he had made a mistake, and he was willing to correct that mistake. And that was something which was a matter of great inspiration for me. I am told that on another occasion, when Nani was arguing a matter in the Income Tax Tribunal, there was a departmental representative opposing him who made a particularly fine presentation. And after the matter was over, Nani wrote a letter to that departmental representative, which he treasures and in which Nani complimented him for his presentation. This is something unusual which very few counsel would have done. In February 1980, he spoke before the Xavier Labour Relations Institute in Jamshedpur. And he spoke on what he called obedience to the unenforceable. He said, that it is important that citizens obey the law. It is even more important that citizens obey the high standards of decency which are not enforceable by law, but are the hallmarks of a truly civilized and mature democracy. The feeling of obedience to the unenforceable is the very opposite of the attitude that whether in government, science, industry, or personal behavior, that whatever is technically possible is allowable. I think if every one of us were to follow this dictum, the lives of people in our country would be certainly very much better. Over 14 years have elapsed since Nani passed away. While his memory remains fresh in the minds of the generation which knew, loved, and admired him, it is necessary that future generations also, who are the beneficiaries of his efforts, know and be inspired by this remarkable person. I think in that sense, there can never be too many books on Nani, and Dharmendra Bhandari's book is a welcome addition. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maligan. Justice RM Lodha, I think words fail me, but he is a judicial crusader. The interest of the common man is central to most of his judgments. He continues his crusade right now to bring justice to the common man. And of course, he has encouraged another common man, in his own words, Dr. Dharmendra Bhandari, to write this book. I would request Justice Lodha to say a few words on this occasion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malegam, Mr. Jahangir Palkhivala, Dr. Dharmendra Bhandari, my sister Justice Sujata Manohar, Mr. Iqbal Chagla, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. When Dr. Dharmendra Bhandari requested me to release the book written by him on Nani Palkhivala, I readily agreed. After all, Nani is born once in centuries. Our generation is indeed fortunate to have seen Nani in action. I vividly remember I had completed my graduation in science in 1969 and I had decided to join law. As the luck would have been, I was in Delhi when bank nationalization case was going on. Entry of visitors in the Supreme Court those days was not difficult as it is now because of security reasons. I attended hearing for about 5-6 days as a science student. Having not yet joined law, I could not understand much about the constitutional and legal complex issues which are being argued. But I can tell you what impressed me most was the forensic debate with eloquence at its best. 2 top lawyers having top eloquence were arguing in the Supreme Court. Nani on the side of the petitioners and Attorney General Niren Dey on the other side. But as a lay person not well versed with law, I could distinguish the difference of eloquence. Nani's eloquence was laced with courtesy, humility, dignity, and submissiveness. And Dey's eloquence was enveloped with arrogance, inflexibility, stubbornness, backed by might of the government. That was the impression that got registered in my mind before I joined law. Where in the history you would find a young man of 25 years is starting penning down a book on a complex subject like income tax and completing at the age of 30 years. Where in the history you would find a person at the age of 43 years from bar being invited to join the highest court of the land. The finest judge the Supreme Court never had. Where at the age of 47 years, a person being offered law minister of the nation. Where at the age of 48 years, you would find a person being offered being the highest law officer of the country. Nani Palkhivala was extraordinary. He had inspired millions of people, millions of boys and girls. Everyone would like to follow the footsteps which were pursued by Nani. 14 years from 1967 to 1980 were the most enriching years for the Supreme Court on constitutional debates. It began from Golaknath case and terminated in Minerva Mills case in 1980. In between, while arguing the cases in bank nationalization, privy purse, he invoked diverse theories. In privy purse's case, he invoked the issue of constitutional morality. An act of an executive may be constitutional, but he was of the firm view that abolition of privy purses was constitutionally immoral. In his words, I'll just repeat and quote, "The survival of our democracy and the unity and integrity of the nation depend upon the realization that constitutional morality is no less essential than constitutional legality. Dharma, righteousness, sense of public duty or virtue lives in the hearts of public men. When it dies there, no constitution, no amendment, no law can save it." Unquote. In Keshwanand Bharati case, which is of course the well-known case where cardinal principle of basic structure was invoked, I will not go deep into the case. But as Chief Justice of India, when I went to discuss few constitutional and bilateral matters with Lord Neuberger, President of UK Supreme Court, we were discussing about the Supreme Court's power in annulling the amendment in the Constitution by the Parliament. When I showed him Article 368, Lord Neuberger could not believe that the expression of the word amend could have a negative connotation as well, where you could read a concept of implied limitation on the amending power of the Parliament. He was little surprised that this word could be construed in a manner the Supreme Court has construed in Keshwanand Bharti case. When I gave the logic that Nani gave in Keshwanand Bharti's case, that if tomorrow the Indian Parliament chooses and amend the Constitution by putting monarchy in place instead of democracy, would it be constitutional? That compelled Lord Neuberger to think it twice. But yet he believed that the present constitutionalism followed by England was better, where they have invoked doctrine of incompatibility. The doctrine of incompatibility is the constitutional provision is tested on the touchstone of UK Human Rights Act or European Human Rights Convention. And if the UK Supreme Court finds that it violates either of the two statutes, it declares that the provision enacted by the Parliament is incompatible with these acts. But the amendment is not annulled. It is sent back to the Parliament to reconsider it. There are many legal jurists who feels that in parliamentary democracy, doctrine of incompatibility is a better way, because it is the will of the people who would finally decide whether the constitutional amendment done by the legislature is valid or not. About Nani Palkhivala Trust, I don't know about the activities they do, but I would suggest, if they don't have, if they have, it's wonderful. There should be Nani Palkhivala Research Center. And there should be full-fledged research on every word uttered by Nani Palkhivala in 50 years. It will be only then that it will be true tribute to Nani Palkhivala. I'll end by quoting the remarks and observations of Justice Kuldeep Singh, which he made while confirming citations of various Rotary clubs of Bombay. He said, Nani has tirelessly defended our freedom and constitution against the evil designs of politicians. I have seen him working in the field of law, in the field of education, in the field of economy and finance, and in every field he has excelled to the hilt. But what impressed me most is his disposition. One feels that he is not a man of this world, but someone from outside. One can only feel his essence and enjoy as one enjoys the fragrance of a flower or the smile of a child. He is like a cool breeze on a warm sunny day. That is Nani, the gentleman. I would say, what a man, what a man, what a man. Thank you, gentlemen.
For those wonderful insights into the legal brilliance of Mr. Nani Palkhivala and his contribution to civil liberties and free enterprise in the country. He was a giant by any yardstick. May I request Hema Bhandari to present mementos, first to Mr. Jehangir Palkhivala. Next to Mr. Y.H. Malegam. and to Justice RM Lodha.
In fact, this was one of the last caricature done by R.K. Lakshman, his signature creation, The Common Man, and perhaps it should go to Justice Lodha, who has been serving the common man assiduously. Now, see, it's the celebration of Nani's life, and can I request family members of Nani Palkhivala and Lodha Sahib to kindly cut Nani Palkhiwala's birthday cake.